We call that Ode to Actuarial Girls. That's the only ode we're going to be singing. This next song is something we worked up this morning. Should be interesting. Yeah. You ready? I think so, yeah. Well, when we perform at FSA parties, we always like to do a song or two about the new FSA. We like it, and they like it, and everybody else always seems to like it, so we keep doing it. And in fact, that's what we're doing right now. Now, to get a couple ideas for this song, I asked Debbie to fill out a short biography. I asked her simple questions like, where were you born and what was your first job? And also some personal questions like, who would you really like to meet? What's the silliest thing you ever did? Now, when I've done that in the past, people have typically stonewalled me, which means they give me the simple stuff, but they hold out on the personal stuff, which is okay, because then I just ignore the simple stuff and make up some personal stuff. But Debbie, being Debbie, Debbie gave me 4 pages, just full of interesting information. 4 pages, typed and formatted. Questions on one side, answers on the other. Lines and spaces, just to keep the answers apart from the questions so that I know which is which is important and helpful in my preaching.
I use tables in Word if anybody needs lessons.
Now, since Debbie went to all that trouble, and since I thought there might be a yuck or two in it, I decided I'd just as well read some of it to you. So this is sort of a song about Debbie, written by Debbie, made lyrical by yours truly, which is me, in case you were thinking yours truly might be somebody else. Put to music by my partner, Flip Jensen. Now, Flip didn't actually write the melody, he's playing on that guitar, but it's a good melody, and it wasn't being used for anything else today. So we decided to borrow it for a while, which makes sense, and is perfectly legal since we're not getting paid for this. So anyway, Debbie, remember Debbie? This is a song about Debbie. Debbie was born in St. Paul in November 1963. But she's not a St. Pauli girl. She was raised in Columbia Heights, and in fact, she still lives in Columbia Heights today. Her first job was at Target, where she worked at the snack bar. She hated the grease, but she loved being up at the front of the store where all the action was. People in high school thought Debbie was a brain, and in fact, that was kind of her nickname, although people also called her Computer, and her brothers and sisters called her Gerber when she was little, which she thinks might have been because of the baby food. Now, I don't know anything about the baby food, but I know that one time I went to see Debbie in her office, and she was sleeping face down on her desk. Now, I couldn't help noticing a little bald spot right behind her eyes in the very back of her head. And I went for a closer look, and there, present in that bald spot, very clearly was the word Gerber. I don't know if that's a birthmark, or if it's something her brothers and sisters had tattooed there as a brain. But kid, I recommend next time if you ever lose your head and then find it again, before you put it back on, you might want to spin it around and take a look at what you find. Debbie likes the theater. In fact, her fantasy is to someday play the lead in a Broadway play. Her favorite book is Gone with the Wind, although actually that's her favorite movie, but she says the book is pretty good too. She's a big fan of Jerry Seinfeld, Randy Travis, and Barry Manilow, and in fact she'd like to meet each of those people someday. Although she really did meet Barry Manilow one day. It was at a book signing, and she got a little bit flustered and she couldn't think of anything to say, which is understandable since she has 8 Barry Manilow albums, 4 Barry Manilow CDs, and he probably looks even stranger in person. Now, I gotta admit, I'm not a Barry Manilow fan. In fact, I think the day he released At the Copa is probably the lowest day in my life. Even though I'm not a fan, I did buy a Barry Manilow album one day. It was a long time ago when I was in college, and the guy in the next room had a Captain and Tennille album. He was just playing the shit out. sick and tired of hearing about how love was going to keep them together. So I went out and bought a Barry Manilow album and gave it to this guy, hoping he might play that instead. But he didn't. He kept playing the Captain and Tennille, so I took a leak on his stereo, and the Captain and Tennille broke up anyway. I gotta check the words here. Oh yeah, I bought a Manilow album, and that's kind of silly, I guess, but that's not near as silly as some of the stuff Debbie does, like writing with a Beauty and the Beast pen at work, controls with fluorescent hair on her computer, or always asking for extra ice and napkins at restaurants. Although probably the silliest thing Debbie ever did, other than typing out these 4 pages, was the time on Halloween when she put silver paint all over, put on a silver dress, and went all dressed up as the Tin Woodman's wife. And what's really interesting is that although Debbie does all these silly things, when I asked her what one thing she'd do over again if she could, she said she'd take life less seriously. But she also said if she could do it over again, she'd study abroad in college, which is what I wanted to do. But my parents made me go to St. John's, which is an all-male school, and there weren't any broads that wanted to be studied. Now we're getting ready to wrap this song up, but I really feel like we ought to accommodate Debbie's sister, who is having this party, and who asked us to talk about her planning fetish, which to Debbie's sister means that going on vacation with Debbie would be sheer hell, because she'd have every minute planned and there'd be no free time whatsoever. Now, Debbie admits to being a planner, but she doesn't think it's all as bad as her sister says, and in fact, she probably didn't plan on us singing this song. And we didn't ask her permission, because we can sing anything we want. We're the RBAB.